networking versus community building, and entrepreneur versus solopreneur. These are the subjects we're going to talk about today on Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. Greetings, everyone. Good day to you from Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. And I realize it's not Saturday morning everywhere, but that's where we're coming to you from the broadcast point, and which is actually a lie, come to think of it, because up in the cloud, it's like a 24/7 circular wherever you are. Even if I start the hangout, we have people participating from virtually all over the world. And in that respect, it's a global thing now. And really, the time of day for me doesn't really matter. But anyway, Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties, the Marketing Smarties show is dedicated to education. And we like to focus on some various things as a premise for what we present to the people. So the very first thing is education. And we'll explain more about this as we go. But today, it's not a formal education such as this is the textbook edition that comes from the such and such university of, it's all from the School of Hard Knocks in today's world. And it's the trending thing that's happening. And we are in the midst of a wave of video and live streaming. So that's probably the main focus of what we do. And I hope you enjoy what we have to bring you today. As usual, we have some people joining me in the green room. My co-host and partner, Bill Graham. Say hi and tell everybody a little bit about yourself, please.
Good morning, everyone. It is still, it's actually afternoon, so good afternoon. My website is billdoesbelize.com, and I provide unbiased information for people who are thinking about making a move to Belize. Information that I refer to as the unbelievable truth. And today I will be your comment manager. So whether you're in the VCP plugin, which is where I hope everyone will end up, or you're over on the YouTube, please sign in. Let us know you're here. If you like where you're coming from, and certainly give us some feedback on what you're hearing today.
Real good. Thank you, Bill. And we have others with us in the green room. We're going to introduce now Roland Fulsang, and we are going to bring her back on shortly after Roland's rants and another brief jump on a subject. We're going to talk about entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, and she's going to have a special presentation. We're going to put her on the spot, and she's going to give us some information and an education on those concepts. So Roland, come on board and tell everybody a little bit about yourself and your show on Tuesdays and so forth.
Sorry, I almost forgot to unmute myself. Well, it is morning here in beautiful Victoria, British Columbia. And it's fun to be here. And I just would like to say that I do a Tuesday morning show, a regular weekly Tuesday morning show called Being Your Own CEO. And it's especially for solopreneurs. So as you might guess, I have a few thoughts around what solopreneurs are. So thanks for the invitation, Roland.
Absolutely. And it's standing right now. We are, many of us are testers of the VCP plugin, which is a WordPress plugin for creating these events to have a show right in your own website with the comment stream and the video and more. Branding opportunity and featuring of comments from the audience and involving them in the live conversation. So we're going to touch on this later on. But before I go on, a couple more people to introduce. We have Tim Longwell. I'm sorry, forgot your name all of a sudden. Tim Longwell from Longwell Art, and he's joining us too. Another feature of the VCP plugin that he's bringing on board very soon, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. But Tim, say hi and tell everybody a little bit about what you do.
Hi, my name is Tim Longwell. I am Longwell Art, for lack of a better description. We're expanding our outreach from just producing art to helping people use creativity to gain contentment and happiness and relaxation. And after a little bit of working, I played with painting for pleasure, and it was a little too narrow because a lot of people won't like to paint. But everybody can create, and they can create for contentment. And that's what Longwell Art is about.
I love it. And my takeaway is we're linking creativity with happiness. And that to me is like huge, huge. The connect there is huge because I'm always telling people, if you're going to get into business and if you want to get in online and express yourself on something, do what you love and eventually you get paid for it. Forget about the income when you start. Do what you love. Because if you're doing that without a concern with the payment, then you're not distracted by the concept of, gee, I got to make a buck, and gee, I can't do this without getting paid. I've got to put a price on everything, and what am I going to do? And that completely taints the entire presentation on what you're doing. But you have to do what you love and do it well, and start with that. The money will come as a natural result. And if you want to ask me how that works, well, we can talk, but other than in the show. We have another person to introduce. So we're going to bring Andrew Hatchett on board and tell a little bit about the communities, because community is going to be a big subject, partially today, but in the future, we're going to have some major discussions on community. And I hope with today to leave you with a little bit of an idea of why it's so important of a concept for me. So Andy, come on board and say hi and tell everybody a little bit about your community.
Okay, thanks, Roland. My name is Andy Hatchett. I'm in Hermitage, Tennessee. I run a Google Plus community called User to User Live. Basically, it is to help people learn how to use Hangouts on there, and anything that they can work with those things, other apps and stuff. We're getting into live streaming since it's becoming more prominent. 2 shows a day. It's all in the lower third. If you're interested, stop by. We'd love to help you.
Thank you, Andy. And your partner, Michael Daniels. I didn't mess up his name, for the first time in like maybe a year or two. I'm very sorry. But you and Michael Daniels do a lot to contribute to the internet community and the education concept. So it fits right in with the core philosophy of what we do with Marketing Smarties. So thank you for being here. It's an honor to have you on board.
My pleasure.
So we will be, as I said, talking about communities sometimes, and we're going to touch on it today. But before we get into these subjects, I wanted to talk about my rants for the week. And some of it's like not me charging in and putting my finger on somebody, because I don't like pointing. It's not the nicest thing that Roland does, for sure. But I do like to emphasize that there are certain people who are bringing stuff that I disagree with, and some people who are bringing stuff that I am in total alignment and support and endorse and agree with. So we've got a couple.
Before you get into your rant,
yeah, go ahead.
Can I just mention two things. First of all, I want to just acknowledge that Lori B has joined us again this week and thank her very much. And also with reference to Andrew's lower third, that's Monday through Thursday, and that's Central Standard Time for everybody, just so you know, 10:30 and 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Good points, and thank you very much, Bill. And this is part of what Bill does. He brings in some critical information at the right time, so I don't just walk past something and leave people wondering, what the hell did he just say? Or what did we just imply? I like a little bit of guidance goes a long way, so thank you, Bill. And hi, Lori B. You've been a dependable audience member, and I really love the fact that you're there. So your comments are welcome, and we'll include you in the conversation where we can. So anyway, Roland's Rants. Somebody I've been following for a few years, and I don't talk about him all the time because he tends to be more like a traditional marketer, but by the same token, he's really heavily into casting. Well, when I say casting, webcasting, broadcasting, video casting. You know, he produces things for online presentation, and one of the things that he does is podcasting. And he's a fabulous character. The guy has his act thoroughly together. He even has a principle where he takes a 30-minute show and segments the show 6 minutes at a time, so he can divide his 30-minute show into 6 podcast segments. So he produces a half-hour show and 6 podcasts all at the same time, and then he goes into the editing room and just prepares each one and each segment. And you talk about multi-purpose and to repurpose your product that you're supplying. I mean, it's really an example of maximizing, minimize to maximize, and he does one thing that affects more than one product, and that's what min-maxing is all about. So thank you, Michael. Mike Koenig. Koenig actually is. See, what's confusing is Mike Koenig. His name is spelled Koenig, but it's pronounced Koenig, I'm pretty sure. So Michael, send me a text or a mean message, whatever you would like, and correct my pronunciation. I like to pronounce names properly. But he has a thing. He's got a book, and I'll show you the book. Well, maybe I won't show you the book. Just dropped it on the floor. But the okay, hang on. Well, part of the comedy of this show is me fumbling around if I drop something. Okay, that'll do it. So the idea is he's got a book, How to Be a Video Interview Pro, which I'm very interested in as far as what he thinks are the primary principles. And the concept of video interview pro is huge, because one of the things that we emphasize is you don't have to be the authority. You can be associated as an authority if you interview the right people and you bring that knowledge to the world. And that very well could classify you as being an authority resource for a subject. So he's talking about interviewing is a great way to get into the live streaming business. But he talks about a lot of things about interviews and live streaming, connects the dots there. But in the midst of this, he gives a freebie with the book. And when you go to the website and read through this, part of what he offers in order to get you to opt in on the email list, that's all it is. It's like freebie, 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 because I want you on my email list. That's the ultimate goal. And his middle offer there is worded kind of like blah, 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 blah. We're going to give you this interactive workshop where we talk to you and it goes on for an hour and give you all this very valuable information. But what I didn't care for in the midst of that was the pitch element. Now, marketing is well known for trying to entice people to buy, whether they actually deliver what they're suggesting or implying or not. And the catchphrase in the midst of his advertisement is, in this live interactive workshop, Mike will share 21 ways to $1 million day and 3 case studies about how he and some of his business and celebrity clients, that's the key now, how some of his business and celebrity clients have generated over $1,000 per client, blah, 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 blah. Now, to me, that's implying I can teach you how to make $1 million day. I mean, that's the feeling that they're trying to convey with the advertising, right? And so the issue to me is nobody that takes this bonus freebie is going to learn how to design $1 million day. They might get more popular, they might become a celebrity and might be big in business, and they might get a huge following of hundreds of thousands of people. And then, yes, if you hold a webinar and a production with an interactive workshop, you very well might have $1 million day. But the average person like you and me that's got 20, 30 people following you, and you're trying to get started and you're trying to create something, you look at an ad like that, and the ad is supposed to take the people, the little guys on the outside who are just wannabes and would-bes and will-bes, and people who are trying really hard to get things going. They see that and they're enticed into buying the shiny object. So I guarantee you that beyond this, there's something that leads to a point where Mike sells something. And that's what marketing is basically all about. You lead people to the point of sale. And I mean, without you knowing it, I'm leading you to a point of sale. I'm just not as obvious as some people, and I don't do it the way they do it. And if you don't want to buy from me, it's okay with me. I have no stake in that. I really don't. And so that's part of the difference between what Mike is doing, what I'm doing, and what Mike is doing and what a lot of people are doing, what I'm doing, and a lot of people are not following my lead. But the bottom line is the deception factor is there. And so that's the part that I have problems with. And that's the minimum maximum rant on Mike Koenig for me today. But there's also some other stuff going on in the internet. And I wanted to ask people what exactly they think of this, especially my green room constituents and any of the audience that's involved in marketing. There's a term that's very common today, and it's called SEO friendly. Now, the way it's used is by a twosome, and they call themselves Jim and Mike. I don't know if anyone else is receiving promotionals from Jim and Mike, and I won't get into who they are or what they're connected with, but they're pretty predominant in the new stream of marketing. And they're saying, we have this project and a product that produces landing pages or creates landing pages, and the landing pages are SEO friendly. Now, what the hell does that mean? Now, when I think of SEO friendly, I think of the content. The content has to be SEO friendly. It has to be keyword focused. It has to be relevant. It has to be a lot of things. But SEO friendly, I can even see that the design of a website or design of things from a functional, technical standpoint has to be SEO friendly. It has to be responsive, and it has to be cross-platform compatible. But what is, and I'm asking everybody to tell me what you think, when it comes to landing pages and selling a concept that I can give you this template for a landing page, what the hell does SEO friendly mean?
I'll tell you exactly what it means.
Please.
It's a new buzzword that is meaningless.
Exactly. You've wrapped it up. The entire conversation on the first part of my issue here. What is SEO friendly? It's a buzzword that people are using, and it's another shiny object, or the shine on a shiny object, to get people to say, oh, it's SEO friendly, I guess I should buy it, or maybe I need it. And it encourages people to buy something that they haven't researched and they don't know exactly why. They don't know exactly what, but it's SEO friendly. And it's like, if you include those terms, your opportunity to sell is about 3% to 5% higher than it was if you don't use the term. And to me, that's deception. To me, that's misleading. And other people might disagree, but I question the intention of the producers of this ad. Roland, what do you have to add to that?
Well, I was just going to say SEO friendly just means or points to the fact that people, if they have a website, they want to be found. And the way that they're found is through a Google search or a Google listing. And so really, the phrase SEO friendly just means that all the right things have been put in the right places so that Google can pick it up. That's all it means.
Okay. And so
the trouble with that is that there are so many factors that how can anyone know if all of the right things are in all of the right places? And then the next, I mean, the best thing you can do for yourself, and we've had this conversation on Roland's show, is to just educate yourself a little bit about how search engines work, and just do the minimum you can to do as many things properly as. But there's everything about what you put up there, whether it's speed, it's mobility, it's content, it's keywords, so whether they're in your title, whether they're in your images, whether they're in your, and I could go on for 2 hours and I don't even know that much about it. So I have to pay somebody to give you an article that covers all of the bases that make something SEO friendly. And I would question, how do they even, I mean, the final step in Google search is ranking. And that's a secret that they hold pretty tight. And well, it's not really a secret. It's just ever evolving. So it's not something they can publish, because by the time the print came out, the what do they call it? The parameters of it would all have changed anyway. So,
well, and the disconnect going on is people look at this as like, this is you and this, and that's the problem. That's the bear over there, and then this is me fighting the bear. So they look at it like the algorithm that Google comes up with, whatever their intention and the reasoning is to do what they do, it's you, me against you, and I'm fighting you. Instead of focusing on the same thing that Google's focusing on, good content, most relevant content, most applicable search results. If you're being that, you're going to find yourself on Google, good Google search results. That's hard to say. And, you know, that's the main thing. But when you're trying to beat the system and you're SEOing as a strategy to get on page one, regardless of what it is that you're promoting, that's where the disconnect is. And I always ask.
And all of those things you mentioned come down to one thing, and that's providing a good user experience. Finding what they want when they want it, having it load fast, all of those same 250,000 things that I didn't mention earlier. So it's.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
About SEO. If somebody managed to get 2 different links into a Google search listing within the top 10 links that show up when you put a certain phrase in, would you say that they have worked on their SEO to get that listing up there?
Not necessarily.
But probably.
Okay.
I would say they've worked on gaming the system more so than providing valuable content.
Okay.
Well, I have to argue with the gaming the system too.
If you put in, quote, hangout on air, quote, and hit return, 2 of my postings in the user-to-user community come up in the top 10. I don't do any type of SEO doing. So how they get up in the top 10 is anybody's guess.
Because regardless of what you do to try to game the system, if you will, you're relevant, you're there, you're regular, and Google senses who you are and brings you to the top of page one, and or two listings on page one. You're relevant, so you're there, and that's the point of the whole thing.
I just
You
tried
have to
this.
be
This is the
relevant
first time I've
authority.
seen this.
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't even
Well, and
know.
then the other thing to consider is whether you're searching incognito or from your regular Chrome browser, because your search
That's
results
true.
will be totally different. If you're in your regular Chrome browser, it's going to recognize that you kind of like your own stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to incognito, what used to be on page 3, you might scroll through 45 pages and still never see it.
So the point is,
But it goes back to something we used to always say. What makes you think you deserve to be on page 1 to begin with? I mean, there's only 6 or 7 non-paid slots on a page, and how many million people out there putting out content? So what makes you think that you're in the top 6 of the millions of people in the world?
yeah. So the point is, the search from your point of and perspective, you might be on page 1, and you might be the only one that's getting that search result. Tim, you had something to add that you really were adamant about, that you wanted to talk about, and gaming. And I might have a comeback with you.
Well, on gaming the system, the thing is you were talking about these gentlemen that are making SEO-friendly landing pages. So how do they deal with the SEO unfriendly aspect that Google is deprecating value of a landing page and have publicly stated as such?
Yeah, I can't answer that question, but
there's that issue you bring again. Of their honesty, of their integrity. Are they pulling the wool over someone's eye to make a buck, or are they really helping? And it's obvious once you consider both factors where that's going.
the fact of the matter, as I see it now, that when I say that, it's not a fact. It's a Roland's rant opinion. Is that there are people talking about, these are good strategies and tactics. You should do this, and you should do that, and you should do that. And they're not wrong. But to imply that if they buy their product, that these things are going to be set better that you could do on your own, or have some special secret that we've done it all for you. It's a no-brainer. It's a you don't have to lift a finger. It's all done for you. And to imply that that's going to get you on page 1 is really the deception that I hate. And the bottom line is, these people are not out to make you money. They're out to make themselves money. So what's the objective of their ad? The ad is an advertisement to convert you, not to help you get conversions. The ad that you're reading with this ad about SEO-friendly landing pages, that's the ad to sell you. That's not the ad to help you out. So
Roland, what you're talking about is a marketing tactic that pushes the hope button.
yes,
People are I mean, the first thing that you talked about, 20 ways to $1 million day. I mean, that's pushing the hope button to the extreme.
agreed.
Just not having to do anything, having a magic landing page that I don't need to learn anything or do anything. So, I mean, we as marketers, I guess what we're all saying is, we need to do things with a degree of honesty, but I mean, we also all know that people buy on from an emotional place, and that's by pushing the hope button. That's how it's done.
Well, that's how 80% or more of the people out there do it. But it doesn't mean that we have to follow suit or we have to emulate what they do or follow their lead. And one key thing that you said, Lowell Ann, is we have to perform or do our thing with a degree of honesty. We have to determine what that degree is, because personally, I want to be 100% perfectly honest. I want 100%, 100 degrees has to be complete. I want perfect honesty. I'm not sure that I can do that, but by just getting on here and expressing myself, good and bad and positive or negative, just expressing myself for what I feel, that's as honest as I can get. And any time that I mean, my promotion here, it took me a long time to have enough ego strength to put up my logo and the Smarties and the stuff to part of my presentation, to be actually proud of what I'm representing. But the things that I'm putting in front of people do not represent the deal of the day and how you get things faster, cheaper, and et cetera, et cetera. It's not a sales pitch, it's branding. And the brand I want based on 100% honesty. And 100% honesty doesn't mean that you have to know it all and see it all and tell it all perfectly. It just means you have to be honest. And so if people are sensing that we are honest, then they'll listen to us further and either agree with you or disagree. They're going to take from you the things that work. And if you have to deliver to the people enough things that work, you're going to get a positive reputation from that. But the premise on the internet circuit is, what can I make a buck on the internet? I know the opportunity is there. Millions of people are making millions of dollars. What is the opportunity that I have? And they jump from what they feel, what they represent, what they love. They jump to the shiny object. And that's what 80%, and actually it's probably a lot more than that, any percent of the people are doing today. They're jumping at the shiny object and they're trying to make a buck. So that's what we're all faced with. Bill has something that he's bringing from the field.
Yeah, it's from Lori B. She says, Google is now the newer algorithm of a Facebook takeover. Hope is a fallacy. Trust equates to faith and where it's at. And
I would love for her to explain what she's saying.
I'm not 100% sure what she means about that, but one of the first things that kind of struck my mind is that there's a big difference between Google and Facebook. And first of all, yes, Facebook is maybe the #1 social network in the world, but Google is by far and large the #1 search engine in the world. And when we talk about SEO, we're talking more about search engines than we are social media pages.
I agree with that. And when we're talking about a Facebook takeover, you think Facebook is trying to somehow unseat Google as the traffic center of the internet? Is that what that implies?
I think that Zuckerberg has made that pretty clear that his intent is to be the world community online. And he's worked and got caught with his pants down, so to speak, many times over trying to close that system to exclude anyone and everyone else. As an example, if you put a link up for a link to a video, and in that link is the words youtube.com, his algorithms automatically block the video.
Are you sure of that? Because
it takes you off of way you link the. Instead, what you do is you link. You can do it inside groups, but if you do it as a public share, if you use the short links, it'll get shared. Otherwise, what the algorithm does is it restricts how many of your friends and acquaintances and so on that are on your broadcast list when you do a chat or whatever. It restricts how many of those get that link.
Well, let's clarify that, because whether you use YouTube or not, only 3 to 6% of the people on your so-called friends list is getting that post anyway. That is the algorithm for Facebook. 3 to 6% is average. If you are really, really relevant, you may be pushing that up to 8 or 12%, or maybe a little bit more, but you never get to a quarter of your people in your Facebook friends list seeing an ad or a promotional or a post that you put in Facebook. It doesn't happen.
Right, and that's very true, and I'm not denying that. What I'm saying is there have been some studies, and unfortunately I don't have the links to the research to put out, because it's one of those deals you read and your mind goes over it and you just go on to the next deal. But there's actually been research to show that if you put that youtube.com stuff to a video in your link to your message to your friends or whatever, instead of getting that 3 to 5%, it's going to get maybe 0.5% to 0.1% broadcast.
Well, I believe that, and we could spend another hour on Facebook alone, but we're not going to do that right now. My rants and raves have gone on, so unless you want to wrap it up with something, Tim, we're going to definitely move off the subject. But if you want to wrap it up, you can. You
made some very great points this morning, and my suggestion was that don't stop here when people see this information. Don't do any snap judgments. Go out and look this stuff up, because there is a lot of information out there that will help them understand that these rants are valid points they need to investigate themselves before they move forward on anything else.
That's the best point of the day, and that's why this program, Marketing Smarties, is based on education. And the concept is people are self-educating. They don't need an instructor. They don't need their pinky hold as they walk down the internet aisle. It's out there. The stuff is out there. You just got to sift it through and decide what works for you. Because a lot of it might be factual depending upon the application, but you've got to discern what applies to you and what does not, because it's not going to be the same to everybody. And you're going to get the pros and cons and the applications and the non-applications. So you've got to do your research, get an education. Okay, now we're going to move on in the hour here because it's getting away from us. We got to focus on this concept: entrepreneur versus solopreneur. And so, Lowell Ann, I'm going to turn it over to you. And first of all, we would like a brief definition of what you think entrepreneur means, please.
Well, an entrepreneur is somebody who is creating an enterprise. And I'm using Michael Gerber's definitions. He's written several books, maybe 3 that I'm aware of, called E-Myth. And when I started thinking about solopreneurs and so forth, I was very much influenced by his work way back in the 90s. So he talks about the difference between a technician and an entrepreneur. So he says that the technician is creating a job for himself, and the entrepreneur is creating an enterprise. Well, and I started thinking about that for a long time. So in my own mind, what is a technician? And I came to the conclusion that it's a freelancer or a professional who is totally focused on what it is that they do, but they do it as an independent contractor. And today there's a new term. It's called the gig economy. So that's how what I decided was a technician. What is an entrepreneur? Is a person who works on the business to make it grow. So they've got a strong vision for the future. They have passion and the passion and the power to actually create something. And they're building something, but they are also paying attention to business processes. So when I say business processes, and structures, the marketing and the selling, the planning, the client customer focus, the financial management, the lead generation, I'm making all of all of those decisions. So that's where I draw the line between somebody who's just out there freelancing and who is thinking things in terms of a business.
The other thing that I would like to ask you is, and how you feel about this, is that I got the impression from some of the definitions and the resources talking about entrepreneurs that an entrepreneur is really as much focused on building a business in order to sell it and then move on. They're not necessarily committed to a focus concept for the purpose of this is what I love, but it's like, this is what I know I can produce and develop into a business and make a profit on. So any comments on that?
Well, no, because I mean, why does anybody go into business? Why does anybody work? I mean, you've got to generate some income. So I mean, there's no getting around it. But not everybody, and certainly Michael Gerber in his most recent book talks about starting up your business to at the very beginning, as though you were preparing it to for sale down the road.
Right.
And I suppose that that's one way to look at it, but as I look at some of the things that some of us that are out there doing various things, you take my own website. I was thinking the other day, I wonder if I could ever sell that website. I put hours and hours and hours into that website, but it's called Loweland.com. Nobody's going to want to buy Loweland.com. So my own personality and what I do and what I put into that is a major part of it. So I think that it depends on the kind of work that you do and the way that you profile the whole thing. But I to get back to this whole thing about what is a solopreneur, because I gave that.
Wait a minute. I'm not sure we're done with entrepreneur.
Okay.
Now, would you say that we've got a really bad echo going on? Anyway, is an entrepreneur, who is an entrepreneur? And as far as the entry level into the world of business online, a lot of people are assuming, I want to be an entrepreneur. What does this concept represent to them ultimately? And what is the next step if they want to pursue entrepreneurship?
I think if you think about the reason that people do that, it's because they're looking for independence. They want to be able to make their own decisions, and they want to do things in the way that they want to do it.
I think that you wrapped that up right there, because entrepreneurship is done a lot of times by people who don't feel like they fit into the corporate structure, and they like what I say about myself. I think I've fired as many bosses as have fired me, and because I don't get along with everybody, I don't agree with. One thing I can't stand is stupidity in my superiors, and I say that it doesn't. That's not an exact description, but when people make ridiculous decisions above you and it affects your work and your job, to me that's a disconnect for me, and I know that I don't want to keep working for that person or in that system, and so that's why I'm self-employed. So anyway, you hit it right there, that people want to be able to control a little bit about their job and what they do, and in that respect be directly connected to their future and their product. And so that pretty much explains to me, and hopefully for the people listening out there, what the entrepreneur is. And now we can move on to solopreneur, and how is that different and more specific?
Well, for me, I adopted the concept of solopreneur because as a coach, for example, I'm all by myself. Okay, what I do is what I do, but as I work with what I'm doing it with a business approach. So I'm not. I mean, all of the pieces around being in business, in order to sustain yourself, you must do that. And one of the big stumbling blocks that a lot of people, when they decide to go into and become a solopreneur, is they don't want to market and they don't want to sell. They want to. They think that if they hang a shingle somewhere, they will just come. Well, that's not the way business works. So we have to look at all of the business structures and all of the business processes if we want to be successful. And who are solopreneurs? Well, they are people who are building a business, but they are, they are technicians to some degree, but they must also have a business side of what they're doing.
Okay.
So there are people like coaches, bookkeepers, virtual assistants, home business people, multi-level marketing people, web developers, consultants, event planners, content writers, all of those things. Those are all technical things. But if you're going to be able to make a living at it and to sustain yourself, you must do it with a business perspective and a business approach.
Now, part of what I've derived from my research on solopreneurs is that they have a tendency not to be as closely engaged in collaboration and partnerships and working with people. They like to do their thing. Is this something that you found also?
Yes and no. I mean, yes, they're individualistic. They want to, they're doing things in the way they want to do. But as time goes on, and they become more, they become busier, and then they begin to realize that all of those hats that I mentioned, the financial hat, the bookkeeping, and all of those pieces, I mean, they have to wear so many different hats that eventually they become, they get to the point where they realize that they can't do it all. There isn't enough time in the day. So what happens to a lot of solopreneurs is they'll find another partner and shear off one of those hats and pay somebody else to do that one thing. And it might be because they either hate doing it. I notice that a lot of solopreneurs hate bookkeeping. So what they do is yeah, exactly. So what they do is they find a really good bookkeeper and pay them to do that. And so there are all those other pieces. I mean, there's your online marketing, there's lots of people that don't write their own content, for example. They get somebody else to write it and post everything out on social media or whatever. I mean, an important aspect of being a solopreneur is to recognize what you're good at and what you're not good at, and see if you can find a partner who is good at something and pay them to do it. So it's not quite the same as working on a team in an organization.
Okay, I'll have a further question to follow up with this, but Bill's bringing something.
Yes, from Lori B. She's making the comment that an entrepreneur is a person who brings to fruition a new concept, not because they want to be on their own, which I think basically what Roland was saying. And I wanted to also acknowledge that Barbara Quick joined us today. She's in the BCP plug-in watching, so welcome, Barbara. And I just wanted to ask a question before I turn it back to you, Roland.
Sure.
So what I'm hearing from Roland is that we start out, and to me, a solopreneur is somebody who's doing business, but
how about take yourself off of the screen share there and go ahead and let us see you speak.
For the most part, we're trying to do, and even though I'm not in business, I consider myself an infopreneur rather than a solopreneur, not to throw that into the wrenches, but
there's a lot of those.
Solopreneur to me is somebody who, like you said, starts with the business intention, but they're trying to do as many things on their own, whether it's for budget or for whatever reason. But as you said, as you grow and you get bigger, you want to start handing some of that stuff off. And I'm wondering at that point, do you not cross over from being a solopreneur to being an entrepreneur?
That's a good question, Bill. I don't, what I was going to say to Roland, and it really much pertains to this, is I think that there's more of a reflection in the attitude of the individual, whether you're an entrepreneur or a solopreneur, on the onset. And there's a defining difference in the attitude of the individual. And the biggest thing I see is the entrepreneur is willing to leverage and scale upwards. And they see an opportunity as, this is something that we could multiply times 1,000 and just grow. It could really become a movement, not just a thing that I love, but a movement that I can maybe have my hands on and maybe control and whatever. But it's might be something that Google comes along and buys from me for $1 million or 10 million or whatever, and it'll be out of my hands, but it'll be this thing that I start from my vision. Okay. Whereas the solopreneur is more thinking, if I just do my little thing and have a little business on my own and can sustain myself, I'm happy and I don't need to go beyond that. But what they find is, and when my comment to you, Roland, was going to be that everyone takes their own road. But it seems to me that very often, and not always, but very often, all the roads lead to the same place. And whether you have the vision of scaling upwards from the start and seeing what your leverage factor is, or whether you just get it going and know that it works and have the confidence to build it up slow and then leverage it up that way, you end up being a solopreneur by yourself, but with limited partnerships and strategic alliances with people, they get the job done more efficiently and better, and helps the other person, your so-called JV partner, also maybe gives them a job. And so you build something gradually and small, and it achieves the same thing on a different level. And it has to do with the attitude of the individual, whether you end up being some version of a solopreneur or some version of an entrepreneur. But the roads could very well meet somewhere. And Bill, I think that you're right, that a solopreneur, after he gets it going so far, gets a following, and the people realize, dude, the guy's got something there. He's onto something. And then someone comes along with a vision that says, scale upwards. And so the solopreneur becomes the spark for something that's really entrepreneurial minded and corporate minded, and becomes something that scales upwards. So what do you think now?
So Roland, what you were just describing, when the solopreneur is at that point where they're connecting with other people, that leads right into your topic about building community.
Yeah, exactly. So, which is why I dropped that onto the tail end of this.
Yeah.
Because
I wanted to share something that Gerber writes. He's got this phrase in every one of his books. And by the way, for anybody who's not familiar with Michael Gerber's E-Myth, and you're interested in learning how to build a business, his books give you all the tools that you could ever need to do that. Anyway, his phrase that it kind of sets my teeth on edge in some ways. He said, "Solopreneurs are technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure."
Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah, but and so when I was trying to decide what what my business coaching approach would be, that's why I came up with the phrase and the title, "Being Your Own CEO." So that connotates, that says it all. It says that yes, you're the one that's in charge, but as a CEO, you've got a lot of responsibility and a lot of things that you really must become successful and skilled at.
I like that, and the theory is sound. So I believe that you are a good resource to talk about solopreneurs and entrepreneurs. Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, it's reasonably parallel to what my concept is for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And I think it goes a lot deeper than that. And everybody, if they were watching this, probably has their opinion and their perspective about what a solopreneur is and what an entrepreneur is. But either way, people are in business trying to connect, because you can't do business by yourself. I mean, someone's got to pay you money, and someone's got to have a reason to pay you money. So that implies a service or a product, promotional advertising, so integrating, and then the concept of reaching out with that. And when you start to reach out, then you're faced with this, networking. And I have a really horrible taste in my mouth from the entire concept of networking. Not because I haven't networked with a lot of great people and benefited greatly from networking. I do a lot of networking online, but that's not the focal point for me. That's not the primary thing that I'm doing, because what I'm doing is I'm building relationships. And from the beginning of the Smarties show, the concept was relationship building. That's relationship marketing. That emulates what Brian Kramer says, H2H, or human to human. And it's the relationship. Everyone's talking about relationships now. These other guys were talking about, what was the term? SEO friendly. Well, my term is relationships. Relationships, and building those relationships. Whether they end up being just a friend or an acquaintance online, or they end up being a client, it all starts at the lower levels of the relationship and what you turn it into. So for us small guys starting out and building something online, that's what we should be focusing on, the relationship building.
So Roland, I did a whole series of blog posts on the topic of relationship networking. I mean, if you really look at the concept of networking, just going out and throwing your business card around everywhere is not networking. Networking really is about building relationships one person at a time.
Yeah. Excuse me. This is my point, and it's well defined and a really good start that we're going to bring this on next week. So for one thing, for next week, I'm really hoping that Andy, you got to be here next week. Can you possibly make it? Can we be 99% sure that you can at least try? Your mic is muted still. Oh, we might have a problem with the Hangout because the sound's not coming through. No sound. Okay, so yeah, so we have some difficulty with sound, and we will keep testing, Andrew. Andy, whenever your mic kicks in, we'll let you speak. And the question will be whether you can make it next week. But the concept is the difference between networking and community building. And it's really, really critical what is represented by each of those concepts. So if I were to leave you something as bait to come back next week, Tim Rubin talks about the differences between networking, and community. And he would wrap it up like this. He says, networking allows for an opportunity. Pardon me. Networking gives you reach. Networking gives you reach. Community gives you power. Now, I'm going to take it a step further. Networking allows for opportunity. So it says the reach, but it's an opportunity. It's not anything in itself. It's just an opportunity. That's what networking is. But community, when you're building relationships and associations with people and you're communicating, that gives you, according to Tim Rubin, that gives you power. I would take it a step further. It allows for leadership, because power by itself is also worthless. If you're going to lead people and direct people and to help people, now your leadership might be, you might be a good connector of people and simply being there and saying, oh, you need that person's help. Oh, you need that person's help. And you maybe your way of method of leadership is to connect people with the solution that you know you can help people with. That might be your method of leadership. But community with power is not as important as how you lead and what you deliver and how you influence the people in your community. So we're going to talk about communities next week. And Andrew, is your sound back yet? No, I guess not. Oh. If you would like, we're going to stay on just long enough. If you wanted to type a message in.
Actually, I had muted myself down by the side.
Okay,
I hadn't seen the thing. But yes, I definitely will be here next week. I'll tell my sister I'm unavailable for her to-do list.
The priorities have been taken care of for Andy's week. And Andy, it's important to me next week because we're going to talk about community. And you've got the best example of community that I know of. And you execute it with the same type of spirit that I fully endorse, and that is you're out there with the sole purpose of helping people improve their lives. And it gets back down to the nitty-gritty when we talk about Zig Ziglar and his concept of you can have everything in this life you want if you will just help enough other people get what they want. And that is the underlying premise to everything that we do. And if you keep that, and if you believe that, and you have a little faith, and I don't mean hope, I'm talking about faith, this works. And the universe is gonna conspire in our favor and find a way. If you do what you love, you will eventually get paid for it. It all fits the same schematic. Call it God-given, call it a universal law, call it law of attraction, whatever you want. It works. So next week, we will be talking about the community. And does anyone have anything else that they would like to add to the tail end of this that we didn't allow you to say during the Roland's Rants and the various things we've delivered? Anybody? Tim, your mic is not.
Tell all my clients, my byline was, it's important to do what you love with passion.
Absolutely, and I agree 100%, so I like that line. So I believe that we're going to be wrapping things up reasonably on time for the first time in months, maybe. I think that we kind of wrapped at the end of the show up pretty well, not that long ago, but it doesn't happen very often. We're off for 20 to 30 minutes overtime. We'll go ahead and wrap it up today because I really think that we hit the concept of what we're delivering today, especially talking about solopreneurs and entrepreneurs and the fact that we lead in from there, talk about community. Not just networking, we'll do that too, but networking is one thing. Community building is a whole different subject. So with that, we're going to say goodbye and thank you very much for Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties, the people in the audience. Thank you for being there, Lori B. and Barbara Quick. See you soon. Thank you very much for showing. Good day from Saturday Morning Marketing Smarties. Well, I really love my theme music. I'm sorry that we're not able to deliver it a little better. We're having the technical difficulties, so I guess we'll just have to live with it today.